Beautiful. Great way to start.
Exercise the demons.
Welcome back to WRPL, the podcast where we talk about all the things we are watching, reading, playing, and listening to. My name's Ben.
And I'm Steve.
How's it going, Steve?
Doing well, Ben. Doing well.
Recording a little early tonight. Uh, I was going to say a special episode, but not really. This is we don't have anything else because we saw Dungeons and Dragons 2023 early. This week we kind of had just a gap of things, so we decided to watch original Dungeons and Dragons 2000. I don't like calling it that. It sounds like it's the sequel and it's cool and edgy.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the time in the early 2000s, I feel like a lot of things were called like whatever 2000s, even though like it didn't need to.
Yeah, because it was cool.
Yeah,
it was
Y2K, baby.
Yeah. But as always, let's roll. I got the die.
All right.
But you got to go first. That's the rules.
All right. I'm going to go high. It's going to be a 17 today.
Okay.
That is a nat 1.
Oh my God. Have we changed places?
I have never gotten a nat 1 on the podcast, I believe.
Wow.
That's, oof. Oh boy. All right. This is it, Ben. Let's get that 20.
No. I'm
going to say 12 for you.
Yeah, I was thinking 13. Oh my God!
We've done it.
An actual 20?
On the D&D episode.
This feels scripted.
Yeah. I wish you guys could see it because
this is no lie. Wow. Okay. But once again, we average out to a very average episode. We're never both going to roll well.
So, but we've done this before, right? Where I've gotten a 20 and you've gotten a 1, right? I feel like this happened a couple weeks back.
I got a 20 2 weeks ago. You had a 3, a 6.
Oh, wow.
And I got a 1. It was like our first true episode of the year. I got a 1 and you got an 18.
Wow. Well,
yeah. I can't wait to get
this. Is exciting. I'm looking forward to this now. I'm hyped up.
So I was going to count these up like as for the end of the year, but should I count them up when we do our anniversary episode, when we do the brackets? Should that be when I count? Or should it be calendar year?
Let's do it on like the best of year to see like
the end of the year
list of like our top stuff, and then it's just like who was the top roller this year, and then I'd say we add it up for that.
All right, sounds good. Got a few things to talk about. I don't have a ton, but you do. But I think we should start with books.
Okay.
I finally finished my book. You have a new book, and then I have something afterwards, bookish that I want to bring up as a little surprise. So I'll go first,
okay?
Because mine's quicker, and we've already talked about this series
in our first episode.
We've talked about it a few episodes back, but I finally finished Royal Assassin, the second book in the Robin Hood Assassin trilogy. I really like this book.
Yeah, book two is an improvement.
It was really good. So I left off where they had to go save this town because the red ships were coming.
Yep.
And this does ring a bell. And then they came back. So pretty much the last of what I had was them setting into motion their plan to get the king out, get Ketrigan out, and things go amiss, and he's just like being tortured by
it's a very Game of Thronesy ending.
And I like this whole time, like I said before, like I can't wait for this royal guy to get his fucking comeuppance because this guy's such a piece of shit. And that I have something about that I'll bring up in a minute. But this was good. I don't love the way that they get out of the situation. Because he's talking to his wolf, and his wolf's like, "You gotta die. You gotta come with me." And I'm sitting there like, okay. They mention lay down and die. He gives him a poison. Or Birch gave him a poison to take, but then made mention of being dug up by dogs later on. And like, oh, okay, it's a sleeping thing, and then they're gonna bury him and bring him back to life. But then Night Eyes is saying like, no, you got to come with me and be one with me. And like, okay, so is he trying to merge their brains together? And like, I don't know what they're trying to do. Well, it turns out it's both of them. And I think it's fine because it is a world of magic, but it's not brought up earlier. And I feel like they are just pulling it out of their ass at the last minute.
Okay.
And after they dig him up, they put his brain back in. He does a little thing of like, yeah, Burge heard a story from a long time ago that someone was able to do this, and so we decided to give it a try, and it worked. If it hadn't been set up a little bit before, I know Night Eyes like kind of went into his brain and protected him against the evil woman. I keep forgetting her name, not Sheila. What's her? She's like her. And she has a guy who they both have the power, and they've been trying to like needle into his brain.
So are you talking about the like
Serene?
Okay.
Serene. Like they were gonna attack him. He was sick or whatever, and then Night Eyes came to protect and would even like scratch the dude, and they saw the wounds, but then the wounds disappeared, and that's how they figured out he was using the wit. So I guess that was a little bit of a setup, but it wasn't enough for me.
Okay.
And it just felt kind of ho-hum, but I'm excited.
I've read too many books, and it's been long enough to where like I can't argue against this because I don't remember it all that well.
Yeah.
But
I'm interested in the next one because now he's only loyal to Verity. He's not part of the kingdom anymore. Everyone thinks he's dead. So we're really in a good place of you can do anything. So I'll be excited to get that next one. It's going to be a while, though. Probably 6 weeks. I think I'm on hold until the next book comes out. Yeah. So that'll be fun to get to. The thing about Regal, he has Fitz has people on his side trying to get him to be in place. If Regal's going to bail, they want Fitz to take over Buckkeep. And he's trying to get answers out of him, and they're beating the shit out of him. And then he, quote unquote, dies. And they argue, well, he deserves a burial and yada, yada, yada. Don't burn him. But none of them say anything about like his body being absolutely destroyed. Because Regal even said that, like, don't break anything. We can't really... It can't look like we have been torturing him, but there was no covering this up. He was battered and disgusting, and none of the other dukes or anything said anything. And maybe this will come up in the last book, but...
I mean, could they have just like... Because their plan was to... I don't remember that, but like, couldn't they have just like when he died, quote unquote, couldn't they have just wrapped him up and like, oh yeah, he died in the cell? And it's
I guess it's wrapped up so quickly that none of those questions are answered, which makes sense because Fitz doesn't know, and we are following from his perspective. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm often wrong about what I expect you'll like and what I think you'll dislike, so I could be very wrong. I think the third book is probably the weakest, just because there is, and this is like obviously no spoilers. There's just sequences of just kind of. They're in one place for a very long time, and it's like, oh well, like can we like advance the story along?
Okay.
And then the last bit just feels like very rushed in terms of like how everything wraps up. Okay. But it may feel earned for you. I don't know. I'm very excited that you enjoyed this one, and I look forward to hearing what you think of the series as a whole, because I do love this series, and I think it's extremely well written. But book 2 is definitely my favorite, and book 3 is my least favorite of the 3.
Are you going to read the next trilogy?
I already read the next trilogy.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. It was the Mad Ship trilogy with the magic ship.
There's another one.
Oh, with Fitz.
Fitz and the Fool. And
oh, yeah. Eventually. I like to break up my trilogies because there's, I think, 4 or 5 trilogies and then a quadrilogy. And not just in the Robin Hobb universe, not all about these characters. So I've read 2 of those trilogies, and I'll get to the rest eventually. I'm going to read some other stuff, then get back to that, stop that, read some other stuff, come back. So I'll finish the entire Realm of the Elderlings probably in like 4 years from now.
But that's all I really have to say. I'm enjoying it. I can't wait to see where it goes. I don't know if I'll do any more after this. A buddy at work loves her work too, and he's going through the next trilogy with Fitz.
Okay.
And so I'm going to kind of wait for what he has
See what
to
he has to
say,
say.
and maybe I'll get to it. And I don't even know if it's available on my app. So yeah, we'll see.
All right.
What did you read?
So I read book one in a trilogy called The Fifth Season.
Okay.
The Fifth Season is the name of the first book, not the name of the trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
And it is essentially takes place in a world where there is cataclysmic events that occur every however many years, could be 100 years, could be 1,000 years, whatever, that basically just kind of brings about the destruction of the planet, where only very few humans can survive because like volcanoes explode and like the sky, becomes full of ash and blackness and tons
Is
of
this
that.
Earth or is this a mythical place?
I believe it's a mythical
Okay.
place. They don't establish it as like our Earth, but it is a world filled with magic. I mean, there's no like not really magical creatures.
Mm-hmm.
It's just certain people have an ability called orogeny,
Ew. Terrible word.
which essentially they can like they're kind of like earthbenders from Avatar.
Okay.
They can like shift rocks and they can feel vibrations and like quell shakes with their power. And they like harness heat from the earth and like kind of can push out ice, so they can like kind of freeze people who are like too close to them. But ice isn't like their like power.
Okay.
It's all sort of earth-based stuff. And what was fun about this book, it was kind of broken up into three characters. There's a little girl who is sort of taken to a place called the Fulcrum, which is where they train Origines to basically be their warriors and sort of like shift Earth in areas where they need to, and sort of like kind of quell areas to make sure that like we can hold off on these cataclysmic events as long as possible, kind of stuff. Um, and so you see her perspective, like kind of getting trained in this academy for people who have this ability. Um, and then you have a character who's like I guess in her 20s, and she is so when you graduate the school you
Can you
get
come a little closer to you?
yeah, when you graduate the school you get rings, and rings are kind of like your rank and how like powerful you are and how long you've been with them, yada yada yada. So she's a fourth ringer and she gets teamed up with a 10th ringer,
Ooh.
and he's the only, I think he might be the only 10th ringer, like he's just kind of like the most powerful dude on the continent. And her job is to have sex with him and hopefully birth a baby who will also be like super powerful.
Okay.
And he, they don't get along at all. She's very abrasive and confrontational, and he's kind of like laid back and like as powerful as he is, doesn't seem like he gives a shit about anything. But he kind of like teaches her things and like secrets about the world she doesn't quite know. So that section's probably my favorite. And the third is an older woman whose child was murdered by her husband, and who took their daughter, and she has to go find them. Uh, and the other thing is the people who can like move and like shift the earth. People don't normal people don't like them,
Okay.
and will often kill them on sight, kind of thing. Like if they find out you're one of them, like hiding amongst themselves, they will kill you. Uh, and only like the people at the Fulcrum are kind of like sanctioned essentially by like the government. Like you don't kill these people because they work for us, but everyone else is kind of free game in a
Okay.
sense. But basically, it's like a kind of racism, and there's even a word for that's like a harsh word. It's
Mm.
the R word. They call them ragas, and it's like it's basically like the N word of
Okay.
this world. Um, and anyway, but they run into there's like people who may be made of stone from centuries ago. It's a pretty interesting book. I had a really good time with it, and like where all the story went, and like uncovering secrets, and like seeing how these people like use their power, and like the guy who's a 10th rigger can essentially like destroy an entire city by himself if he wanted to. Like, it's very interesting. And there's also obelisks in the sky that may or may not do things.
Hmm.
I can't tell you. But I really enjoyed the book. It's been on a lot of fantasy books, like top 10 list or top 20.
How old is the book?
I think it's only like 2015 or something like that. It's a relatively new series, but it lends itself to be cinematic. I could definitely see this being like a trilogy of movies if they wanted to. And I believe like all the main characters are black, and it's a black author. So it was kind of nice seeing like reading a fantasy series where it wasn't just about like a bunch of pale whiteys like in
Yeah.
a castle. Because
That was my problem with the Royal Assassin is we talked about how these are people of color, but the book cover shows a white dude on it.
yeah,
And so I was trying to make myself see these characters as not white people.
yeah.
And it was so hard because I've already been locked into an image in my head of them. So it was hard for me to separate that. Especially because it's not really overly stated
Yeah.
in the book. But yeah, I mean that's cool. You don't see a lot of people of color in fantasy.
And then it is a fantasy series, but it isn't like there is castles or anything because they're
Mhm.
kind of like castles would be almost useless in this world because like
They just
earthquakes would,
crumble.
would just
Yeah,
crumble. Yeah,
okay.
like the best people do is like they'll build walls, sort of like keep outsiders out, but like they don't build necessarily like giant structures because they're just going to collapse and everyone's going to
Hmm.
like get crushed under it and stuff.
Okay.
So everyone lives in these like small sort of like villages they call calms and everything like that. And only the fulcrum's kind of like this big sort of like city kind of area. And certain places have been able to survive a long time, but most comms like get wiped out when the season comes. And so it's a pretty interesting world. And like I said, I enjoyed the book, and I just started book 2. So I'll let you know how that goes. But not. I've come on here and gone like, oh, I really love this book. I really love this book. This is the first beginner book in a trilogy where I was just like, I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't be like, you gotta read it.
Yeah. Okay.
So
And why?
I do have limits to my enjoyment of stuff. I just want to point
If it's
out.
fantasy, I love it.
Yeah.
Why is it called the fifth season?
So the 5th season is what they call these cataclysmic events because, like I said, humans do survive these things. It's
Mhm.
just most humans don't. So they started recording the history of their world, and they kind of break it down into like, oh, this was the season of teeth, and they have a description of like why it was called the season of teeth.
Okay.
And so just every 5th season is the cataclysmic event that like shapes the world in a new way, and they have to start over kind of again.
And how far are we from the last fifth season?
I don't recall.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's long stretches of time. Like I said, it could be 2,000 years before another season happens.
All right. So it's not like the long winter of Game of Thrones where it's every 7 to 12 years. Or
Yeah, no, it doesn't
like
happen so because like society wouldn't be able to like recuperate. It's
Sure.
like they have store cash where like they have like rules and stuff. It's like in order to prep for each season, we need to have a year supply of like food and water for each person who lives in this like area, and you're supposed to survive for like 10 years, 50. But obviously, some people like their store caches get ransacked or they didn't store enough or whatever, so people go hungry and they all start killing each other, maybe even eating each other. But so far, the season has started, but it hasn't gotten cataclysmic quite yet. But areas are starting to really suffer from the beginning of the season.
Cool.
Yep.
Well, this weekend I went to a fun little thing. It's called the Punk Rock Flea Market. It's just a bunch of tables of people selling their personal art or thrifted items. Just lots of dumb garbage that you probably don't want. But there's some good stuff too. There's definitely things that you would. There was this little like metal monster dragon head that had this little light in it, and it made it look like it was breathing fire. It was really grotesque and cool looking, but it was like $205.
Did you take a picture of it?
Nah. I feel bad with those things. It's just like, I guess because it wasn't like a print art or anything. I just feel bad that they're thinking I'm gonna like steal their idea, look for something somewhere else. Yeah, it just felt weird taking pictures.
Sure. Okay.
But I bought a couple of things. I bought like this limited edition. It wasn't a print. They made 9 of the same thing, and she just drew it 9 times. So it is an original piece of work. And it's just like a mouth with this weird monster coming out. It's not extremely detailed. It was just gross and weird enough that I decided to buy it. I got the shirt that I'm wearing right now. But I bought this thing. It's called Don't Tell Mom and Dad.
Okay.
It is a D&D book but think of more like Goonies, Monster Squad, Stranger Things.
Okay.
You're in your neighborhood and you have to fight monsters. The DM is called the oh,
And it's a comic book?
no. This is the rule book.
Oh, it's like a D&D
It's an
adventure.
actual D&D book. Yeah.
Fun.
Your DM is your GC, your guidance counselor. And one thing in here, you have to like pick your age range and also your income level. It doesn't make your like just because you're rich, you're better at things, but there are rules where if you are middle class and older, you may be required to have a part-time job, and that takes you away from doing your monster hunting and things
Mm.
like that. But you have an opportunity to earn money. You're lower income and you're younger, well, you don't get an allowance, so it's harder for you to get money. So there's just different.
But you have free time
But
for
you
your
have
monster.
free time to do these things. But you also have a curfew. You have to like ingest food and like your sugar levels. If you eat so much sugar, you get like a boost. It just looked fun, and it was only $25. It is, if anybody wants to look it up, it's called Don't Tell Mom and Dad. It's by Ben Mazzochetti and Ted Gilbert. I'm not sure if it's for sale online, but I figured I'd bring it over, have you look at it, maybe peruse, see how similar it is to other D&D things, and I thought maybe this could be something we do. We could give
Okay.
it a try. And if you don't want to be the DM like you always are, maybe I'll take over that role and you'll actually get to
Ooh.
play.
Okay, okay.
So it was a fun little thing, and if it was $50, I probably wouldn't have grabbed it. But the dude was nice, and I like the art. It looks fun. It's right in my wheelhouse. I'm more of a horror guy than a fantasy guy, so yeah, it looks fun.
Very cool. All right, I'll have to take a look at that. Or do you want to hold
No,
on?
yeah, you
Okay.
you can. Okay, you said you had a TV show.
Yeah, this is my last thing. So I watched something. Well, let me preface this. This is gonna make you very happy. So my parents texted me and they're like, "Hey, what phone carrier do you have?" And I said T-Mobile, and they're like, oh, "Okay," because we switched to T-Mobile. And I guess they were just like offering to have me put on their plan or whatever. But they were like, "Do you have Apple TV?" And I was like, "I don't." And they're like, "Oh, well, we got it for switching to T-Mobile." And I was like, "Awesome."
Hooks
So
me up.
I watched the first season of Ted Lasso.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Um, and currently watching season 2. And Ted Lasso, it's fucking incredible. I love it. It makes me feel good. It makes me want to be a better man. It's
Mm-hmm.
so sweet, and I like all the characters.
Even ones that I think are annoying, maybe from the jump instantly, like Keely. I was
Mhm.
like, oh god, this character is going to be awful, but she's not. She's
Keely,
great.
Keely might be my favorite
Really?
character, to be
Okay.
honest. Uh, but so not only is it funny because Jason Sudeikis' delivery of like some lines and just like stupid puns
Mm-hmm.
and
Everything he says is
every
stupid puns.
yeah.
Some play on words.
This show makes me laugh regularly, but it's filled with like heartfelt moments, and it's like grown men like sharing their emotion in a
Yeah.
sport that's often, it's sports are often like considered macho,
Yeah.
and
Hyper masculinity.
everyone's like very aggressive because they care so much about this like stupid game. But
Mm-hmm.
there is camaraderie and brotherhood
Mm-hmm.
in sports and community, and Ted Lasso just like bringing it all together, and like fans and reporters and a team and owners and just like
The
everybody,
newspaper reporter,
just like all these people who were like trying to bring him down, like they can't because his positivity is so infectious
Yeah.
that he just makes everyone around him and just like each other more.
Mm-hmm.
And the best compliment I can give the show, and it's something I wanted to see from other shows because it's just, and I know it's just classic TV writing or movie writing because it's like, well, we need to inflict drama to make the story interesting. Uh, where it's that thing where, oh, you do something I don't like, but instead of talking to you about it, I'm just going to be mad, and
Yeah.
that's going to be the arc for
Uh-huh.
10 episodes. Pretty much every episode, here's something you did that upset me. They talk about that episode.
Mm-hmm.
It's fixed that episode.
Yep.
And a lot of times, it's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's my favorite thing in the world. Just because it's all grown adults acting like grown adults, and even when they're not acting like grown adults, like one of my favorite things that happened in, I think it's, well, I guess it's the beginning of season 2, but there's a character who's like angry at a girl for like something she did in the past that had nothing to do with him, and then Ted and his buddies are kind of just like, well, but it sounds like you should kind of get over it because you've both have past that,
Mhm.
you know, this had nothing to do, it happened before you, had nothing to do with you. So why are you upset about it? And he's just like, God damn it, you're right. And so like it just fixed the problem right then and
Yeah.
there. He was upset for 2 minutes of the episode, and he comes back, he's just like, okay, I'm over it. We're cool. And they're like, great.
Yeah.
And I just love it. It makes me feel good and warm inside. And season 2 is exploring like not necessarily a darker side of Ted, but like Ted's going through stuff. He's not just sort of this one note Leslie Knope happy character where like Leslie Knope's outbursts were a lot of times like illogical or like cartoonish.
Yes.
Obviously, it's a different style of show. Leslie Knope was a ridiculous character, like Ted getting angry or Ted, being upset about something feels like real and genuine. It's good that this character who is constantly positive can be upset about things and has to work through them. I just think it's a very smart show and I love it and I wish I saw it sooner and I think everyone should watch it. It's fantastic. I have no complaints across the board. It's just great.
And season 3 is on right now and you're going to be able to watch that before I get my Apple TV back and that's going to make me mad. So what do you do? Who do you like better? Do you like Jamie or Roy?
Roy. Roy's great. Roy's one of those characters who the first 3 episodes you're just like, I don't fucking like this guy. It's like this is his real voice. He's just kind of like growly all the time, and he's just telling everybody to go fuck themselves. But he does care. Where Jamie, who has one of the most punchable faces on television, and is your classic like, I'm a pretty boy who's better than everybody, and I want everyone to know it, and I pick on everybody because I can, because I'm the star of the team. Like he's probably my least favorite character, at least in season 1, because he is one of the 2 villains.
I think I asked this question a bit early, I should say.
But as season 2 is going on, I'm beginning to like Jamie. Now, do I love Jamie? No, because he's still kind of a prick, but he's a necessary evil in a sense.
And he's learning. Just like everybody learned kind of quickly. He's taken a little bit of time.
Yeah. But I enjoy what Jamie has done, because most people don't really have huge arcs on the show. It's just like, this is kind of the thing that's bugging me today, and they usually fix it in that episode or in the next couple episodes, where like Jamie kind of stays a problem but grows into being less of a problem. But I think if the guy who didn't get cast as Ramsay Bolton didn't get cast, Jamie would have been a good substitute, because he's just got that very villainous looking face. Like I can see him being a bad guy in something, or he would have been like somebody John Wick fights or something like that.
Hey, perfect. Let me real quick. So, John Wick, they're getting a prequel TV series called like The Continental, and it's going to be about the manager and the Chiron was his character's name?
Charon, yeah.
Charon, yeah.
Something like that.
It's going to be them, but like
younger
years in the past. The dude who plays Ramsay Bolton would make a good young Mr. Manager.
Good segue. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I can see that.
What do you think? How do you feel about Nate?
Nate was, adorable in a like, oh, it's such a bummer that he is so like, no one respects him because he doesn't have confidence in himself. But then, so like he was cute in season 1. Season 2, Nate, I fucking hate season 2, Nate. I won't go into why. But it's just like there's episodes where I like him and episodes I don't, and it's bumming me out.
Okay. Last thing I'll say is there's an episode. It's all about Coach Beard, and it's like one of those one crazy night episodes where, oh, I can't believe I ran into this situation, then I got out of that, and I ran into this situation. Like nobody's life is that adventurous. I hate that episode just because it feels like I've seen this in so many other shows,
Okay.
and they just kind of took that idea and slapped this character on it. And it's a fine episode, and I know it's a lot of people's favorite episode, but to me, it was like this is the skippable one.
Yeah, honestly, Coach Beard is my least favorite character on
Mm-hmm.
the show, mainly because so far anyway, like he's got some good jokes,
Mm-hmm.
and his sort of like mystery of him is kind
Yeah.
of fun
Mm-hmm.
because he is such like kind of a weirdo, but he is like Ted's lovable number two, and
Mm-hmm.
like will call Ted out on stuff, but also support Ted in a lot of things, and like they're just a good buddies, and I like
Yeah.
them together.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also the character like I don't know a thing about, and he like doesn't speak a whole lot.
Yeah.
So he's the character I care about the least. And also seeing him like date this crazy woman is kind of just like
They have like chess matches, right?
yeah they well
That's how they
the first
met.
episode, yeah, they met in like a chess thing, and the first time you see them together, it's like kind of cute because they're playing chess in their mind
yeah.
together. But then they like do more weird stuff with her down the
Mhm.
line. Anyway, so Coach Beard, like I like him, but he's my least favorite character. But season one, Keely and Rebecca, like
Mhm.
their friendship is
I
my
know.
favorite thing in the
It's
entire
so
show.
cute.
And I turned to my wife like 3 episodes into like them hanging out. I was like, they better never break up. Like you can pair all these people up with whoever and they can break up for whatever reason. Like Keely and Rebecca need to stay best friends forever.
Mhm.
And there's even a situation where like this thing that would have like shattered other like relationships in other shows,
Mhm.
they were just like, hey, you need to fix this fucking thing.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, well, and they were best friends by the end of the episode. I was like, this is great.
Yep.
This is fantastic. Because I was like so upset that if they were
Mhm.
like, oh, we're not gonna hang out anymore. I like that she's kind of I don't want to say like trashy because she's not. She's very. It's just like I think she just kind of is perceived that way. There's a better word for it. I just don't have it.
Sure. Yeah, she's the sexy model type who's kind of a maybe a floozy. Maybe she sleeps around. Yeah, it's this thing that hangs over her
Yeah,
from
and then
her
you have
career.
like Rebecca, who's like this tall Amazonian classical businesswoman. Like these two shouldn't get along,
Mhm.
but they do so well, and like they're both so supportive of each other, like helping with their dating lives, or like both think that each other is like so smart. Like that's what I like about Keely is like she could have been the dumb model girlfriend type of
Yep.
Jamie, but she's a very competent, smart person
Mhm.
who just also happens to be like a model and
Yeah.
like does TikTok or whatever. But yeah, so Keely might be my favorite character.
And I'm sure you've seen it just through osmosis, but the actress who plays Rebecca, do you know who she was on Game of Thrones?
Oh, she was on Game of Thrones?
She was on Game of Thrones. Can you place her?
Give me a hint.
It has to do with Cersei.
Oh, she was the
shame belt
shame
ringer.
woman. Yeah. I can see her face now. Oh,
Yeah.
that makes
It's
sense.
kind of fun.
Yeah.
Cool. I watched like 2.5 movies. There's one, and I'll try to get through some of this real quick because I really
Okay.
don't need to talk about most of it. First one I tried to watch was called First and Last Man. And in the description, it was only like 72 minutes. And it said like 2 billion years in the future, humans have evolved past anything we could ever imagine. I'm like, damn, that sounds cool. 2 billion years in the future? What's that all about? Well, I guess it's based on a book about the same concept. But the movie is more of like just a narrating documentary. You don't see anything of these creatures or these humans, where they go, what they do throughout time. It is black and white footage of these old Romanian World War II sculptures that are filmed in like unique angles, and they're either like a slow push in or pull out, or they're sliding left and right, and you don't quite know what you're looking at, and then it kind of comes back far enough and you go, oh, okay, that's an arch of a building. I get it now. And then Tilda Swinton is just narrating this story. I only got about halfway through because I fell asleep because it's so fucking boring.
It sounds like a really bad student film.
It's like if Skinamarink is like the pretentious horror movie, this is the pretentious sci-fi
Okay.
movie. Like if you think 2001 is pretentious, no, that's like mainstream sci-fi compared to what this is, because it's a whole lot of nothing. Do you know the musician Johan Johansson?
Yeah.
Okay, he directed this,
Hmm.
and he got this orchestra to play the music. The music's really good, and it's shot really well, and it's interesting what they're talking about. but they'll tell you a couple of lines of what's going on with the human race, and then there'll be like a 2 minute gap of just music and slow push ins on statues, and then another line,
So there's
and
no
then
like
another.
actors delivering
No,
dialogue to each other,
no.
like no narrative
This
whatsoever.
is something you would sit in a museum and watch, as this is performance art of
Yeah.
some kind.
Okay.
And so there's some interesting things like, you know, they say they make it sound like it's a transmission from the future talking to ourselves now
Hmm.
to like warn us, but I don't know if that's actually true. Um, and Tilda Swinton saying, yeah, you could see what we look like now and think that reminds me of a human, but we are so far different that we're horrifying monsters to you people. They're talking like there's been 12 generations of humans, and we've fucked with it, and nature's fucked with it. There are times where like our legs are short and our arms are long, our necks are long, our eyes have moved to the like center and top of our heads to look at the stars, and like our eyes become like telescopes, and some are covered in fur, some are like translucent, and all this really weird imagery is being told to us, but we don't
You
get to
don't see
see
any of
any
it.
of it.
Yeah.
So apparently, at one point, there's like this huge gas cloud flying through space, and it's heading right to our sun. And we do the calculations. It's going to ignite the sun, and it's going to expand, and pretty much everything in our solar system is going to get wiped out because it's going to expand so much, except for like Neptune. That's the next closest habitable planet. So we spend our years modifying humans so we can live on Neptune. And like that's a really cool
Yeah. Yeah.
idea. But I only got halfway through this 72-minute thing and I fell asleep, and I was like, oh, I'll get back to it tomorrow. And then I remembered how fucking boring everything was, and I didn't go back. So I don't know how that ends. Um, when I was buying our main topic,
Sorry. When did this movie come out?
oh, it's not old. The last couple of years,
Oh, okay.
I'd say. I bought a bunch of cheap ass bargain bin garbage, things that you would never even touch because it's beneath you. Just some
As long as you recognize I'm better than others.
just real shit. Some of the things, like this movie called Slip. I had seen this cover for a while and just never knew what it was.
The slip cover of a DVD.
You're so funny, Steve.
Oh god.
You're so funny. But it's like this woman can contact ghosts, and because she saw a tragic thing, her this man came in and like blew away her classroom and killed her mom in front of her. So now she could see ghosts. And so the opening scene is like her walking up to these stereotypical asshole men in movies where they're like, "Hey, baby, why don't you come over here and let me rape you?" I mean, you know how they are, where it's like,
what accent was that?
that was foreign white.
Got it.
You know, the type of guys that think like, if I harass this woman, she's gonna be charmed
Sure.
off her feet. And so she goes into a bathroom and it's just like, I can't do it. I can't. And in the mirror, there's this cop. And like, hey, I tried to take these guys down and I tried to do it on my own, but I died doing it. So you have to avenge these people. And she's got like a shotgun with her. And like, I just can't do it. I'm not strong enough. I'm like, well, sorry to do this to you, Toots. And the cop's like spirit goes into her. And so now the ghost is controlling and blows all the guys away.
I like this concept.
That's why I bought this movie. It's a cool concept. And there's even a fun part at the beginning where one of the guys runs into that bathroom and he's all bloody and he's waiting for her to come through the door, sees a shadow underneath it and just unloads into it, opens the door, and it's his buddy. And he's like, oh, dude, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to shoot you. But I guess he was already practically dead because she's behind him and like pushes her shotgun through his guts and blows him away. Off to a great start. I'm loving this. And it's cheap, you know.
Yeah,
they're
sure.
doing the best that they can. The actors aren't great. The sets are simple. It's fine. So then the main plot is just there's a guy, he's trying to get out of the what do they call when you scrap a car and you
junkyard?
No, when you dismantle it and sell it for parts.
Oh, body shop. Fuck.
Is it just scrapped?
No.
But you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So he runs this for like a big bad gangster guy. and his little brother is in on it too, but he wants his brother, or no, it's not his brother, it's his nephew. When he promised his sister, like, I'll make sure he goes to a good college. So he had a bag of money, but some of the goons sees him with the money and go like, shit, uh, main boss man Reggie or whatever, he got robbed of like $100,000 last night. It must have been him. So they like kill his nephew, and they're like holding guns on him, like, why'd you rob us? And like, I didn't, that's my own money. And it turns out he sold his shop in order to do this because he was trying to get out of the game. Well, his nephew possesses her body, comes in and saves him, and they have a little buddy relationship. She explains her backstory, and he tells her why he didn't actually rob it. And it turned out it was another
Chop shop.
chop shop. Thank you. Turns out one of the goons like killed the nephew almost immediately, didn't even try to get information out of him because he robbed the thing.
Oh.
But because she's possessed with his ghost, like she knows all this like special intel, and and then the bad guys have to kill each other. It's like a perfectly fine, capable movie. It's just everyone's real bad actors, and it's real cheap looking, but they're definitely giving it their all. So it's not the worst piece of shit I've seen.
All right, cool. Congratulations.
And I've seen lots of pieces of shit. You know that. And so I had these two movies under my belt, and I'm like, I got nothing for this podcast. This is going to be the most boring episode ever. So I threw on Netflix, and the first thing that seemed even remotely interesting, I'd watch. And I watched Level 16.
Does this take place in a parking garage?
No, but it's like this special boarding school of very special girls who they teach every year. Cleanliness is the most important thing. Keep your skin nice. You can't go outside because the air is poison. And
so it's like a sci-fi thing?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
And it's just like this underground lab area. And if you do good, you get to move in up. When you move up to the next level, which is just like your age, you may be in the special group, and yada yada yada. That one, it's obvious from the get-go. Like, obviously, this isn't some special boarding school for special little girls. It's like a cloning facility, and they clone these girls. And maybe they're not even clones, but they do talk about like their genetic matches to the people who buy them. They think they're getting adopted by people,
right?
But they're actually skinning them and then wearing the skin of young people. So this old man and old woman come in, they have a body, and she's just like, yeah, I'll take that one. I'm not sure about the logistics of how that's supposed to look, because one of the doctor teacher ladies is one of these people. You can see she has like a seam on the back of her neck, so she's wearing the other skin. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Okay.
So they realize like, oh, don't take the blue pill. They say it's a vitamin, but it's actually knocking us and putting us to sleep. And I guess they're only awake for like 5 hours a day. But they don't know any better. And so two of the girls stop taking the blue pill, start investigating. Things are fucked up, and then they gotta like band together and fight the power and get out of here. And then they get to see the sky for the first time, and it's pretty generic. It's way longer than it needs to be, but it's okay. If you were 11, if you were a young girl going through puberty, maybe this would be like kind of an interesting thing. But I don't know. It's just not very good. It was fine. I gave it a C because it was just perfectly fine.
Perfectly fine. What did you give the movie before?
Slip.
Yeah.
I gave it a D+, because even though it's like a good concept,
good. Okay, got it.
Everything else isn't
bad.
Good enough. Whereas Level 16, the actors are a lot better. The sets look a little nicer. There's a little more effects, not much, but a little more. You could just tell it. This could have been in theaters. You would have been very disappointed if it was. Where Slip, no. But I got like 4 other movies that if you're ever looking for some bad shit, I got it.
Cool.
So let's get to our main topic, because this episode shouldn't be a long one. We're already at 40 plus minutes here.
Can I take one quick segue? I want to introduce a new segment.
Oh shit! Segments?
Yeah, well, it's not really much of a segment. So one thing I do with my wife, and just in my own brain, is like
keep it PG, Steve.
Sometimes I'll like hear a certain combination of words, and I'll go like, "Ooh, that's a good band name."
Yeah.
So this is my new segment, Steve's band names.
Okay.
So my wife, I've said on this podcast, is due to give birth soon, and we have a
Mhm.
doula, and the doula came over, and just talking about like things to expect and things we can do to prep and yada yada yada. I wasn't paying attention.
This is her problem. This
Yeah.
is not really for me.
No, I'm just kidding. But they were talking about like maybe you need to sit down and maybe you just want to like be alone for a minute so you can go to the bathroom and sit down, and while you're there, like it helps stretch things, yada yada yada. But they called the toilet. It's like, oh, that's why we call the toilet dilation station. So I was like, ooh. I mean, I didn't say it at the time, but I think Dilation Station is a great name for a band, and I can see the cover of the album.
Mhm.
It's like there's like a pregnant woman on a toilet, and it's very like '90s kind of grungy looking thing.
Okay.
And she's sitting on the toilet, and she's got her legs spread out, but obviously you don't see anything.
Yeah.
She's got like a long dress, but she's like screaming in pain because she's like clearly but they're all in the bathroom together and they're all like having their instruments in the bathroom, and she's just like, ah. Okay. So that's the cover. But yeah, Dilation Station is the name of the band.
Kind of like in a handicap stall, so there's enough room for everyone.
Oh yeah, it's just a big bathroom in someone's house.
Okay.
And it's just kind of a fun concept. It's like, well, if our music sucks, it's like, oh, we're making fun of it because our name is basically like the bathroom.
Bathroom, yeah.
But I don't know. I just think it's a fun name. So thanks for tuning in to Steve's band name segment.
Cool.
Dilation Station with the album. Afterbirth. Oh fuck. Yeah, Dilation Station's debut album Afterbirth, coming.
Or would Afterbirth be like they've gone on tour, they've had a couple albums, they're done, and then they come back afterwards after a few years, they're doing another tour, and like, oh, this is Afterbirth. It's like we've already had our beautiful baby, and this is the gunk that we're shitting out after the fact.
Or the first album's Dilation Station, and then because it's their debut album, so they named it after themselves. And then the second album, their follow up is called Afterbirth because it's after the dilation and all that.
Would all the track titles be like Water Break? I mean,
it doesn't have to
14 centimeters, or
it doesn't have to all be puns about one single topic. But I don't know. I just heard that. I was like, oh, I'm going to save that and bring it up on the podcast. So I'm going to attempt to, if I ever think of other cool band names, write them down, because I've heard so many and I just never write them down. So I've forgotten all of them. But yeah, I think we can pitch some band segments coming up in the future.
Yeah, I have a little note in my phone for silly names.
Okay.
Normally it's like people's names. Like someone's name is, I think I saw someone's last name was like Mydikoff, and it looked like my dick off, and it's like, oh, his name's Jackson Mydikoff. Yeah, things like that. I don't have any. I only have like one band name, and it's just Sweet Sweet Ewok Meat. I don't know where that came from. That note has to be years old. I have no reference.
Sweet Ewok Meat.
Sweet Ewok Meat. Yeah.
I don't know if that's a band name, but it's kind of like a sweet Ewok Meat.
Sounds like a chant.
Yeah. Sweet Ewok Meat.
Yeah. I had one other. Hold on. Let's see what else I got here. Nope. None of them that I'd want to say out loud.
Speaking of chants, that's another fun thing I like about Ted Lasso. Backtracking is like the chants for Jamie Tart and Roy, where Jamie Tart is the shark, baby shark.
Baby shark.
Jamie Tart. And Roy's my favorite, with it just like, he's there, or he's here, he's there, he's every fucking where.
Yeah.
Roy can't.
I can't not think of Smash Brothers, and just like Roy, he's our boy.
Oh yeah.
But I'm sure they can't use that.
Anyway, now on to our main topic.
Main topic: Dungeons and Dragons 2000. It's the super cyber techno version of Dungeons and Dragons. It's starring Jeremy Irons and
other people.
Waynes and
Thora
Birch. Those are probably the only names you'd know.
Richard O'Brien from
Rocky
Horror is in a scene.
He's in it for 3 minutes. Blue Lips McGee. I'm sure he's been doing stuff.
Maybe,
but I don't know who he is. Yeah, this movie. Well, I think I told this story last week, but I watched this movie when it came out. Living with my friends. And we always had someone who worked at a video rental store. So we always had movies. We saw everything. And this was one of them at one time. And we hated this movie so much that we had to sit down and write our top 10 worst movies of all time list because this had to go on it. We were just infuriated. We weren't dedicated D&D people. Even at that time, D&D is for fucking dorks, like uber dorks. We were movie dorks, but you're pretty dorky if you played D&D in 2000. So I have never watched this since. I've seen plenty of other people talk about it, like Mr. Sunday Movies had a video on it. Good Bad Flicks have a video on it. Just like Nando V Movies, his podcast, they just reviewed it not too long ago.
So you haven't watched this in 23 years?
Yes,
all
but
right.
I've seen enough like little clips, and they're mostly Jeremy Iron just like having a meal with the scenery, just going nuts. So
why don't you tell us what this movie's about?
Oh, I have to.
If you can. I just wanted to get you to do it before you asked me to do it.
Okay. So, in this story, we have two thieves are just trying to catch a break. They want to steal something and do what thieves do, sell your shit. So they break into the magic school, the magic tower.
Yeah, I think they just call it the magic school. I don't know if it has an official name. Yeah. I don't remember any of the names in this movie. It's a classic problem with fantasy.
Yeah. But to steal some stuff, but there is a empress who is being overthrown by dukes, and I don't know what their stations are, but Jeremy Irons is like, I'm going to get this staff and I'm going to control dragons and I'm going to overthrow the emperor.
Yep.
Empress. And these two thieves get kind of wrapped up in their whole situation and promised to help. And so they do. They go on a little adventure.
A quest of sorts.
Yeah, they do some dungeon dwelling and fight some monsters and meet up with classic elves and dwarves as you would in fantasy, and then have a big fight on top of a tower where 100 dragons are flying all over the place. And then they save the day. That's the gist. So before we get into all of our nitpicky bullshit, did you like this movie?
No. It's very bad. But I will say it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. It's not unwatchable.
It isn't. I was very surprised.
I think because I prepped myself for the worst movie ever, I want to say I almost had a good time.
Almost. You're like on the verge of having a good time.
Yeah, like it's got the elements of like a fun movie, because in a weird way, I think it captures the essence of like a D&D game in the same way that the new one did. It just suffers from bad acting, bad editing, bad directing, bad special effects, bad writing. Just everything's bad across the board. But it's kind of fun.
It comes together
almost fun
enough to be somewhat competent. It just really does need better actors. This director, Courtney Solomon, this was like his first thing. Let me give it a little. This is a little bit of backstory.
Okay, hit me with it.
I found out. So he's a Canadian dude. His mom worked in like the Canadian film industry, and big D&D fan. And with working with his mom on projects, he was able to make some connections and learn some things. And I think it took like 18 years, but he finally convinced the right people to give him the rights to make a movie on it. So that's really impressive.
Yeah.
That this dude who's done pretty much nothing convinced a big company to just hand over their property, and you said, run with it. And how many people can say that they took their passion, the thing that they love the most, and just put their nose to the grindstone and got it done? The end product isn't the greatest thing, but hey, he fucking did it.
Yeah. If I was him and I made this movie, it sucks that everyone hated it.
Yeah.
That being said, like, I would be so stoked that I would be like, yeah, I made this thing.
Make fun of all you want. Show me your movie.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the thing I thought, like, when this movie was over, I thought, you know what? If this was made by, like, a student this movie would be great.
Sure.
But because it was like made by
New Line.
a major studio and had like a big as a
It had a
quotation.
budget.
It had a large budget. It's a studio film. Like it sucks. But like if you found out, oh, this was made for like $500,000 and it's like all college students and like there was maybe like one famous person in this movie, you'd be like, oh, this is actually like pretty solid for what they did.
I think its budget was like 30 million.
I looked it up. I got stats.
Okay.
So, yes, this movie came out in the year 2000, the same year as the third edition Dungeons and Dragons launched. So I think that this was just like, we got a movie coming out, we got to launch a new set, change some stuff up. I think third edition is considered the worst edition D&D put out, if I remember correctly. And its budget was $45 million, according to Box Office Mojo. Yeah. Its worldwide gross, $34 million. So it lost about a little bit over $10 million.
Probably more with advertising and stuff like that. I think they had a budget of, say, 75 or 100 million, but they pulled it back at the last minute. So
fantasy is expensive.
It is, but if you think, imagine doubling this budget, how much better would it have looked? Your sets and your costuming, a lot of that may look the same, but those dragons would have looked a little bit better. Mm-hmm. Those exterior shots of castles would have looked a little bit better. We could have had a much more competent movie with a little bit more money. Mm-hmm. So let's get into some of the things. First off, one of the first scenes is was it Damodar?
Yeah, Damodar.
No, it's Damodar and Profian.
Profian is
the
Jeremy
main bad
Irons.
Guy. Yeah. They have control over like a green staff. They want the red staff. They don't know it yet, but they have a green staff to control dragons. We don't know how he got it. It's just in this like little gyroscope thing.
Rotating thing.
For some reason. Have they always had this? Did they need to put it in there to charge it?
Well, it seems like to me like they couldn't get a hold of a real staff, so they had used magic and technology to build their own. This is my guess because I believe the movie doesn't
tell you. No.
Doesn't tell you. It's just like this is our attempt to control dragons with the staff that we have made, and we'll test it out on this one dragon that we were able to capture.
Okay,
I guess.
Okay,
but actually, before this begins, we get like a Kate Blanchett Lord of the Rings intro, where it's just like
done before Lord of the Rings, though.
Yeah, but a year before, where it's just like, here's the world we live in, and yada. And a long time ago, this happened. But like, you don't get any of the cool like big battle orcs or anything. It's just like a black screen with a description for like 2 minutes, and then we get our intro scene. So
we get a nice sweeping over the lake into the dungeon. Definitely PS1 era kind of effects where you would go into full motion video as soon as you got to the end of your shot. Think original Resident Evil opening. Think one of the Mortal Kombats had full motion video. Wing Commander. Think of that. It's not the best effect. And they do love their exterior shots. Any sort of establishing shot of a castle, a fort, anything, you're sweeping around it. You're coming up at crazy angles. They're not the worst effects in this thing compared to the dragons.
They're not the worst.
Compared to that final battle, they're not the worst. But it's definitely like they put a bunch of money in these, and they're like, we're going to use it. We need to use this every single time. We're going to establish where we are, no matter what. And especially in the beginning, it's like rapid fire. All these shots, but it could be worse, and it gets worse because he takes this staff and he lets this a gold dragon.
Yeah.
It doesn't work, and so they drop the cage on it and murder this dragon. And we don't know anything about dragons in this world because by the end of it, it's a huge battle with 100 dragons fighting each other. But are they hidden? Because they seem like they come out of a portal at the end. Have they been banished? Are they being portaled from a different part of the planet? Oh, all the dragons are at the South Pole and we're in the Northern Hemisphere. We don't know how these dragons affect the world. And so they seem not threatening and kind of stupid and dumb.
Well, it's like it's interesting because like all the stuff with the classic D&D party that I feel like is moderately thought out, but when it comes to like the Jeremy Irons, Thora Birch, like politics and
Yeah.
everything that's going on there, they're just kind of like, who cares? Politics are boring. We'll just throw dragons in at the end,
Yeah.
and like that's what'll make it interesting because like I have no idea what's really happening there, and I mean we'll get to it later, but just going off of what you said, the effects in this, it's like I have forgotten how bad effects used to be at times because
We're spoiled.
we're just so spoiled nowadays with how it's like people complain like, oh, the effects in Quantum Mania didn't look all that great. It's like, not really, man. They look fine.
Yeah.
And
Compared
to this, they look like any James Cameron Avatar movie compared to this.
Yeah.
Like these movie is atrocious.
Look worse than special effects in our commercials.
Oh, yeah. So there's almost no good visual effects shots in this.
No, that first dragon kind of looked like the dragon from Shrek. Donkey's dragon. It had that big kind of bulbousy nose.
Yeah,
it was kind of fucking ugly,
mm-hmm.
and it reminded me the effects. I would say they're Mortal Kombat effects. So Dimmadar has like these snakes that come out of his ears that look just like scorpions.
It's like, get over here.
Yeah, it looked just like that. Real cheap and silly looking. And then the dragon effects looked like what Liu Kang and Shao Kahn transform into in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Like, I would almost say that the effects in Mortal Kombat Annihilation are better than this. And that's saying something.
Yeah, as we were watching this, I turned to you. I was like, "Remember the movie Dragonheart?"
Yeah.
Where that movie I think came out in, I'm going to say 1997. I'm going to look it up right now. But the dragon didn't look great in that compared to now.
Sure.
But it looked 10 times better than the dragons in this.
Oh, well, it had to because it was an actual character and it had to talk, so they really had to spend a lot more time. Where this just felt like more of a plug-in effect.
Right. And I mean, you also had Sean Connery in it and all that good stuff. Yeah. But hang on. Apparently, okay. So the budget, according to Wikipedia, for Dragonheart was $57 million.
Okay.
So only like $12 million more.
Sure.
Than this movie.
But
it all must have went to the dragon.
It had to because it's in most of the movie, but they don't have as many sweeping village shots.
Sure.
And things like that.
It's been a long time since I've seen Dragonheart. I just remember going like, but that was 1996, so it was 4 years prior.
Okay.
And the other note I have is like, I want to give this movie, it's like, I want to give it some slack. I was like, oh man, it's from 2000, it's 23 years ago. Of course, we've come so far, but a year later, from the New Line Cinema, the New Line Cinema that put out this movie, the following year, almost to the day, put out The Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring.
It's insane to think.
Like, I can only imagine, like, Peter Jackson must have had, like, early access to this movie. Just like, oh, yeah, buddies over New Line. Oh, we're doing this fantasy thing. What do you think? And then he's just, like, watching this. He's like, I'm going to fucking smoke these fools. Jesus Christ.
But I could see the New Line people seeing Dungeons and Dragons and getting worried that they're filming 3 movies back to back.
Well, at this point, they started filming that in like 1999 or 1998 or whatever. Okay. So they were already like, we're already in it.
They're in it, but it's like, oh my God, this is how bad fantasy could look and perform in the box office. And we got 3 major ones coming out in the next few years. That's got to be really scary for them. I understand why producers like pull the plug on things.
It's just crazy that a company just put out these 2 theoretically so similar properties, and one is just considered one of the worst things ever made, and one is considered I consider it the greatest films ever made. Yeah. It's just astounding. But it's like I got to give it shit for the CGI because Peter Jackson's over here like making the some of the best looking stuff. Now, granted, some of the stuff in Lord of the Rings is dated now, but it still looks great today, 20 plus years later.
And Peter Jackson is very much like this Courtney Solomon fellow, where just has an absolute love for a thing and works as hard as they possibly can to bring you the best version that they could possibly do. But you can just really see the skill levels here. Yeah. Peter Jackson had been working for years beforehand, making his own independent movies and small features.
Yeah, he made it stuff that didn't look good so he could get practice to make the good thing, where Solomon didn't.
And I wonder if Courtney Solomon was given another chance because there's tons of directors who make absolute
Oh,
shit.
of course.
And, like you take your Zack Snyder's or whatever, regardless of how you feel of him, and, Justice League underperformed, and then they fire a bunch of people in the studio, but they keep him on or like I'm sorry, Batman versus Superman
Hmm.
kind of tanks, but then they keep him on to do Justice League, and then they give him even more money to do a better Justice League. It's like they'll keep these directors around to make garbage for year after year after year. Um, and so I wonder if was this guy blacklisted? Like, no, he's just going to waste your money. He doesn't have the talent, or did he think I made my movie? I'm good. I don't need anything else after that.
Hmm.
I didn't even look at his IMDb to see if he had done anything else. I got it right here, so give me a second. So yeah, after this, he did An American Haunting in 2005, and then in 2013 he did Getaway. Is that Ethan Hawke movie? Yeah, Ethan Hawke and Selena Gomez movie.
Huh. All right.
To save his kidnapped wife, Brent Magna must drive at the orders of a mysterious man. So I mean, he's directed 3 things.
Okay.
So,
Well, good for him.
Yeah, there are huge gaps in between them, but good for him.
That's his thing. I got to work for 10 years to get something made in order to make it.
And I'll put out the lowest quality I can. You say it came out a year before Lord of the Rings, and look at the jump. But even a year before this, we had Phantom Menace. And say what you will about the effects, but at the time,
Yeah.
those were pretty cool. Of course, that's Industrial Light and Magic working on it, and I didn't even see the special effects company for Dungeons and Dragons. But there's a lot similar to Phantom Menace. Like they pretty much have I have a vote of no confidence on Queen Amidala scene in this. They have the little like arena where people are sitting in their little podiums, just like the Senate in Star Wars, which you can't say that they stole it from them because they were working on this probably at the same time that Phantom Menace was getting stolen. But it's very similar. And Thora Birch as the Empress has a little bit of a Queen Amidala vibe of really boring delivery and stunted
and ridiculous costume design.
And then the costumes. So there's some similarities here, but I'm sure it's just coincidence.
I like to point out that Damodar, and if you told me it was the same actor, I don't believe it is, but he's a bald man with blue lips, and then he looks exactly like the guy from Game of Thrones. You remember the evil wizards with blue lips from Game of Thrones?
Yeah. That went nowhere.
They give those from season 2.
Yeah, prophecies about Daenerys and
it was just a weird I wonder if Game of Thrones or George R. Martin wrote that before this movie came out. It doesn't matter. It was just a weird. It's just because it doesn't really explain why he has blue lips. It just feels it's a fantasy thing. We're just trying to make his face look interesting.
Yeah.
So it was just. I just wanted to point it out. I just wanted to know if you found that too.
I don't know why he needed to have blue lips. If the veins in his earworms were blue, or he had blue detailing in his armor, bright blue eyes, something, but everything is just black and red, and then he has blue lips. And it's so stupid looking.
A positive. I think all the sets in this movie were actually pretty good.
I was going to say the same thing. There's some good looking sets.
I think there's some good location scouting that went on here. I think for what they did with the budget in terms of and I don't know how much they built or how much was just this is a fancy house that happened to look this way or whatever. They clearly at one point later in the film there's just a old castle that is just essentially just piles of rocks. It's just walls that are missing and stuff. It's just some English countryside that has this stonework. Looks pretty good. I thought that sets in this no complaints.
There's a little marketplace that looks pretty good. Once you get inside caves, and it's anything like Shazam, a multi-million-dollar movie, they had scenes in a labyrinth, and it looked like a set. It looked terrible. These weren't the worst that I've seen. If you watch the show Krypton, man, that show used the same wall and pillar for every sort of hallway scene. Everything else in the show I really like, but those underground sort of shots were not that good. But yeah, I like the the sets. The location I think felt a little um, Hercules or Xena.
Sure.
You know, you find a grassy field with a couple of trees, and there's a cliff face
Hmm.
that you could shoot against, and that's good enough. But their actual marketplace sets and taverns and things looked pretty damn good. And same with the, I don't want to say the costuming was good because the costumes were pretty bad, especially with the elf character.
Yeah.
But you've seen like in their cantina scene, like these goblins with their big armor on,
Yeah, goblins or orcs or whatever,
they are. There was a skeleton man later on that was a really good
really
practical
good practical
effect.
effect. Yeah, like there is some good practical stuff in
The
this.
rug,
Oh, the rugs I thought was really
yeah,
cool.
and it's like oatmeal and then like food coloring or colored sand or something to make it look like a rug, and then as soon as he steps on it, he
It's like
sinks in like
yeah,
quicksand.
like
That's a
there's
good
yeah,
effect.
there's fun ideas in here. Now the costumes I wouldn't say are bad.
No,
Some of I think it was just kind of like hit or miss, but I feel like a lot of this movie looked like it was an 80s film.
this if this came out when Willow came out,
Yeah.
it could have been a big hit.
Like this is like some of its costumes and things in this movie just seem like Dark Crystal to me.
Yeah,
In terms of just like
you
aesthetic
mentioned
and
Dark
look.
Crystal with the last Dungeons and Dragons movie too.
Oh, I did?
Yeah, I think you did. About something.
I've never even seen Dark Crystal to be honest.
So what are you making comparisons for?
Because I think I'm still right.
Yeah. No, you are. It's a lot of like the cloaks they wear don't match and
Mhm.
everything is too clean. And one of the best things about Lord of the Rings, everything was like handmade.
Yeah.
All that chainmail was done by hand, all the little embroidery. Where this was cut a rectangle of fabric and tie it around your neck. There's your cloak. And
Right.
it's just really kind of cheap looking.
Mhm.
And like our
And I don't think any of the armor was actually there was any metal in there. It was all like
no.
styrofoam and plastic and
Yeah,
stuff.
it's all
And you could tell.
Warbler, yeah. But then like our hero Ridley has this like cool cloud strife outfit at the end.
Yeah, I was like, he should have just worn that the entire time.
His normal outfit was pretty good too.
Oh yeah, it was solid.
That
I mean,
short.
well,
no, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I was just gonna say, like, I guess if he's your level 1 character at the
Yeah.
beginning of the journey, like his outfit at the very end is like, you know, his
The unlockable outfit.
he's leveled up. This is
Yeah.
his true armor or whatever, his +2 leather armor that I guess you could use in a sequel that never occurred.
That never happens.
But,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
But-
a shame because like he did look pretty good.
his stuff looked good. Snails had a stupid fucking hat on. I don't get it with those hats. It's
Yeah.
like Johnny Knoxville had one in like that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
it's just like the hat that Kyle wears in South Park.
Yeah.
It's you put one of those hats on someone and they're instantly the goofy character.
Yeah.
And it's stupid. It's ugly and like the rest of his outfit was fine. That hat was stupid. The elf, who I don't even know what her name was.
I think it's Norda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Worst armor. Like I know we've come a long way with cosplay, and there's some like movie accurate cosplay made out of soft, flexible material that looks good. This was the cheapest fucking thing. It's like they had a male chest plate, and they are like, "Oh crap, we forgot. She's a lady in fantasy, so let's put two big cups on it to show that she has armored boobs."
It was George Clooney Batman looking kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
and they had nipples.
I think it even had a belly button, to be honest.
Yeah. She had like her abs. Can't give her six pack because that's too manly. But nice toned ab with a belly button. It was really fucking stupid.
Oh boy. Well, speaking of Marlon Wayans and his
Mhm.
dumb hat,
Yeah.
he does a lot of screaming in this movie. Do you want to give us an official? You kept score at a certain point.
I had known from doing a little bit of research on this that he screams a lot, and it's Marlon Wayans. That's kind of his thing, is being like a big doofus who screams high pitched. I didn't count every little thing because some of the screams kind of come right after another, and I feel like they kind of count as one. But I ended with 14 high pitched wails from him. And I'd say 10 of them are in the first half.
Yeah, there was a lot in the very beginning.
first
Because I mean,
act.
that's when he's most scared and
Yeah.
he's getting thrown into a situation he doesn't want to be in. So I
Bumbling
get
around.
it. Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah, and why the name Snails? That doesn't come up. Like, yeah, he's a thief, but he's really good with nature. He's a whether it's a cook or a healer or something. Oh, I work with snails because they tend my
When
garden.
we were kids, we were growing up and we were constantly hungry, so we
So
snuck in one place, and he thought he was stealing something to eat. That was, oh, it's a slimy peach or something. But it's like,
uh-huh.
oh, he ate
Ate a
snails,
bunch of
and
snails. So
so
we
they
all
call
call
him
him,
snails.
yeah,
You know.
something. But it's like, no, his name's Snails. Main dude is named Ridley. That's a fine enough name, I guess. Do you know what his last name? Oh, I bet you looked it up.
I didn't.
Oh,
Ridley's last name.
no, Ridley's his first name.
Oh, his first name is uh, Rids.
Ridley Rids.
Rids Ridley.
Ridley Freeborn.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Now, can you name his love interest at all?
Mage.
Her name is Marina Pretensa.
Okay, I do remember the name Pretenza. I heard the name Pretenza, and I thought that was like the land they were in. I was like, oh, this is the land of pretend,
Yeah.
Pretenza. I was like, Jesus, like my
Yeah.
eyes rolled.
Uh-huh.
But I miss her. I guess that was her.
That was her.
Okay.
It reminds me of the Simpsons joke, like, oh, like Homer's dressed up and he's like, my name is Guy Incognito. And then we have a oh yeah, and she's fine. She doesn't bother me. She could have been worse. She could have been more annoying.
Mm.
She's pretty generic. Both our two our male and female leads are just very generic. We have a dwarf named Elwood Gutworthy.
I don't know if they ever said his full name.
I don't think so, because they just stumble across him. They're fleeing from Damodar, and he's like sleeping in trash, and they just bump into him, and he's like, "Oh, I guess I'm part of your party now."
Yeah, he's the Charlie from It's Always Sunny who like it's like yeah he's a little trash man who because it's like I guess he joins the group because he fought Damodar because he like just was walking by and was like, oh well, this bad guy's after me, so I guess I'll hang out with you guys because he doesn't really have a reason to be there.
No,
he should have just been like, oh well, you guys are in some shit that I don't want any part of. Okay, bye.
Peace. Yeah,
and it would have made perfect sense.
apparently there's deleted scenes that he has an issue with getting his helmet knocked off, and when his helmet gets knocked off, he goes into a blind rage.
Dwarf barbarian kind of thing.
And so it happens at the beginning, but it never happens again, but it does in the deleted scenes. So it'd give him a little something.
He does get to break the fourth wall in this movie.
Yeah.
Where there's a close up of his face, and I don't remember what he says, but just like, oh brother, or like, here we go again kind of thing.
Yeah,
and it just kind of, which I just thought was a weird choice. I mean, I feel like a lot of movies did that back then. Like you don't really see that anymore because I think everyone just got kind of tired of it. It's like kind of tacky now. But yeah, it's like I don't know if they ever say his name in that movie, and he doesn't really add anything to the party.
He's supposed to be the comic relief, but we already have the comic relief of Marlon Wayans.
Yeah, and
so why is he there?
He's also a dwarf who just always seems to be the same height as everyone because they didn't know how to do the Peter Jackson
They didn't
photo
even
trickery. They didn't even consider it.
They just said hire an actor who's around 5'7" or less, and
put a beard on him.
Yeah, and all the other actors were also relatively short, and so he just looks tall.
It's really weird.
Yeah.
Acting's bad across the board.
Yeah,
I wrote acting is bad.
I wrote acting with an exclamation point.
Yeah. I wrote that at the climactic death of snails where you broke into a fit of laughter.
I've seen that scene a bunch of times too, and it's just so funny that he screams,
falls to his knees and screams,
like literal fists in the air shaking as if he was doing a stage performance, and he's got to really play to the people in the back. But we have like everybody's relatively bad or fine at the best, but there's three main bad actors in this. And so we have our lead Ridley, we have Thora Birch, and then we have Jeremy Irons. Who's the worst actor out of all of them?
Thora Birch is probably giving the worst performance because her face never changes no matter what line she's delivering. It's really bad.
Yeah.
Jeremy Irons is giving probably the better performance, but it's all hit or miss.
Yeah.
Because like there's some parts where I feel like, oh, he's actually doing okay here,
Mm-hmm.
and then other parts he's like you said earlier, he's just like really chewing the scenery and just like it's like watching a Nicolas Cage performance where it's just like sometimes it's just so absurd, and then your lead is just fine all the way through. So it's like he never does anything great, but he never really does anything all that bad.
I can think laughable things
other than like the scream of the sky, but that's just a classic movie thing. So I feel like you kind of get the whole spectrum of acting in this because like here's a classically trained, probably Shakespearean actor who's only doing this movie for the paycheck.
Yeah.
So he doesn't really care all that much about doing well. And then a guy who's probably just like, I really want this to work so I can launch my career. And then a girl who's like, I've been working in this industry for a while, and I don't even know what movie I'm in. It's really strange.
Apparently he had just bought in a castle.
Yep.
And he needed the money. So fitting.
What a cool thing to say.
Yeah, to be able to just like, I had to pay off my castle, so I did a fantasy movie. And then I had to pay off my spaceship, so I did this sci-fi movie.
Oh, Jeremy Irons. He should have just like, I don't know, robbed the Fort Knox or whatever. I was trying to do like a Die Hard Vengeance thing. I can't remember what he was robbing.
It was
New York Stock Exchange or bank thing. I don't know.
It wasn't.
I ruined the joke.
Yeah, you did.
But I feel like they were just like, that place has more security than Fort Knox, or it's like the Fort Knox of New York, or whatever. I don't know.
Foreign exchange.
Gold. I don't know.
Whatever.
Never mind.
This isn't a Die Hard episode.
It was a bad joke. Bad joke. I'm allowed to have one.
Yeah, go for it.
I was gonna say, can we take a moment to talk about the labyrinth
The
scene,
Indiana Jones scene?
the Indiana Jones stuff?
Yeah.
So at one point, they have to go meet a man named Silas, who's like the head of this thieves guild, and like they kind of know him because they're thieves too, and all thieves know each other. And he's played by Richard O'Brien, who's from Rocky Horror Picture Show, and he's like, if you go through this dangerous labyrinth I've set up, at the end there is the Dragon's Eye, which is the thing you need to complete your quest. Classic D&D setup. That's all well and good. So we have pretty much like 2 sequences where he's going through this labyrinth, or no, 3 sequences technically.
Well, 3 segments of
the labyrinth, yeah. And they're all just clearly spoofs of Indiana Jones, like to the T, to the point where it's just like, you're not even fucking trying. It's like you couldn't think of cool things to put in your dungeon, so you just did Indiana Jones.
Well, you know why? Because the guy who created this created the Indiana Jones traps. It's the same guy, and he just copied himself.
Really?
Really.
Wow.
That's
sad.
That's bold.
Because you have the first segment where he enters the labyrinth, and there's light, and if he moves something through the light, a dangerous thing comes down. In this movie, it was swinging axes,
it was,
essentially,
pendulums,
pendulum blades, to which he gets through that because he figured it out. And then he gets to a room where, much like in Temple of Doom, there's giant spike things slowly coming down.
No, that's the third one.
That's the third one.
It's fire. He's got the eyeballs on the ground.
Which is like from the third movie with the how do you spell Jesus in Arabic or whatever it was.
Whatever.
I don't know. But so he's able to get past that. And then he's in the spike ceiling that is slowly coming down because he's got to pick a lock, but then figures out a way to get out of that, which I actually kind of like that one. It was a fun little idea. But then he finally gets to the room where the eye is.
Beam of light down on it.
And he slowly walks up to it. I was just waiting for him to like pull out, because they steal stuff the entire movie, but they don't ever really bring it back up again. So it's like, oh, this would be a good time for like him to like pull out something from his bag and like switch it with the eye so that no secret booby trap happens. And you're waiting for it, and then it doesn't happen.
He just picks it up.
And that might have been like, they're going to think something's going to happen, but it doesn't. He just completed his mission. But my major problem with this thing is that spectators can watch the labyrinth and it's just like, well, no one's ever escaped it. It's like, because no one who's ever watched someone do it felt like trying. Yeah. Because anyone could go like, oh yeah, I know how the labyrinth's set up because we all watch it every week when people try and enter. Like if anyone who watched it tried it, they could probably get past all this stuff. Maybe not the third thing because no one ever figured that one out.
Sure. I can see people getting past the first one. A guy goes through, hits the light, dead. And they go, oh, it's the light thing. But when you get to the second one, if you don't know that it is, because I'm sure they're not thinking, where do I step? Or which eye is it? I
just
can,
get burned instantly.
they just keep getting burned. We don't know how far they actually get, and we don't know how often it happens. It can be, everybody knows you die, so it's only the foolhardy that go in there, and it may be 50 years since the last person went in.
I mean, I guess the second one's probably the hardest because not only is it like you have to step on the right things while fire is going against you and a wall is coming from behind you, there's also a closing door that seems to start immediately. So then you're just like, well, now I have to dodge 4 things as opposed to 1, and then you know.
And obviously it's probably magic fire, so it's like the moment it hits you, there's no putting it out, something like that. But I just run through it.
Yeah, I just run through it.
It was not that long of a hallway.
Cover your like.
Yeah, put your hood up or something and run through it.
It didn't seem that bad. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't try it, but it didn't seem that bad. Also, during the scene, not the labyrinth scene per se, but with the Thieves Guild, we get 2 mentions of what about Honor Amongst the Thieves?
Yeah,
which is the name of the new D&D movie.
Which is, I'm sure
unintentional.
It's probably unintentional. It is a common saying, but what are the odds? Mm-hmm. But then I got even another thing. So this week, D&D comes out. Next week, Super Mario Brothers. Mm-hmm. These 2 movies, they're original ones. 2000 and what was it, 93 that Mario came out?
Let's say 95.
No, it's 90.
Okay, I believe you.
So big gap between when those came out. They're coming out a week apart now. The taglines for both these movies are practically the same. For Dungeons and Dragons,
93.
Told you. You're not the only one that can do dates. The original Dungeons and Dragons movie, its little tagline on its poster was, "This is no game."
Of course.
Makes sense?
Yep.
And for Mario Brothers, it was, "This ain't no game." So they have practically similar taglines, and then their remakes are being released a week apart. What are the odds of that happening, huh?
It's all simulation, buddy.
They're like, we're running out of ideas. That's why we're in this reboot, remake phase in the world, because the simulation is just like, oh my God, we can't create anything new. Let's just rehash everything. They'll love it.
Real quick side note. The score on this movie in IMDb is 3.6.
Okay.
And its Rotten Tomatoes score is 10%.
I mean,
not great.
I get, it's hard to say, like, as a critic, this is good, I would recommend it, but I don't know, 10%? It's a little low. And I guess if it's a 3 point something on IMDb, if you turn that into 100 point percent, that's like 30%.
Yeah.
So I say 30% is pretty okay for this. I think not 10% is maybe a little mean.
I'll meet you in the middle and say, like, I can give this like a 20%.
Okay. All right. We'll
which in this, depending on what your rating is still like a failing grade, because I think this movie does fail across the board in pretty much every aspect, other than like, and this is all just like hindsight and a fan of fantasy and going into it and knowing that it's bad and expecting the worst. Still somewhat enjoyable.
Yeah. And I got the 2-pack, so I'm going to be watching the sequel.
Oh, of course.
Do you want me to save it for you? Do you need to see it, or do you want to just borrow it from me?
I think it'd be a fun thing to watch together.
Okay.
Because I think I have no interest in watching bad movies by myself.
Okay.
Like bad movies with other people who like know it's bad. I think we could like make jokes and stuff because we don't really need to pay attention.
No.
That being said, I don't have any other notes of this movie other than so we've gotten to, they get the eye, they run into Damodar a bunch of times, they get captured a couple times, they escape a couple times. We have the scene where Snails dies, and I don't want to say it's effective, because it's not.
No, but
I think
you don't see it coming.
Yeah.
You would never expect that they're going to kill off one of the 2 leads, especially the one with probably the biggest name at the time. This is before... No, was it before Scary Movie? Or is this right after?
I want to say Scary Movie was Scary Movie might have been 2000 or 2001.
Because Scream was 96, and they capitalized on that pretty quick.
Maybe it was 90, like 90.
Yeah, I got IMDb right here.
But while I was also doing research, clearly while you were doing research, this movie came out the same year as Requiem for a Dream, I think, or like he
Okay.
was filming. Yeah, he was filming this at the same
At the
time
same time
he
as
was filming
this.
Requiem. So it's like this iconic sort of
His best role.
highly beloved film, and then one of
Mm-hmm.
the most worst things in the same year.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And Scary Movie came out in 2000.
Big year for
So
Marlon
big year
Wayans.
for
Holy
him.
shit.
Yeah, and really, you have terrible comedy from him. Scary Movie, he's the most annoying character
Sure.
in that.
He's supposed to be, though.
Yeah, but that's a funny movie, and then you have the best dramatic turn he's ever done. I mean, I've never seen 50 Shades of Black or Boo or any of that. No, he's not in Boo. He's in Haunted House.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he puts in amazing performances in those. I'm not 100%.
So yeah, we have that, which was fine, and we'll get to that later. And then we have eventually he gets a magical sword, but they don't really talk about it.
No.
He's gifted it by the elves who
These weird,
these like
skull mask wearing fuckers.
Yeah, it was like what are those sand people from Star Wars?
The Jawas?
Not the Jawas, the other ones.
Tusken Raiders.
Yeah, it was like Tusken Raiders in a fantasy setting,
Sure.
but they were also short-ish like Jawas, even though they were assume they were the same elves as Norda.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It was just like it just didn't seem they went to an elven home in the forest that was very reminiscent of like Lothlorien from Lord of the Rings, but is just filled with like these weird skull elves or something.
We only see like a healer.
They were like
elf.
Mad Max looking.
Yeah, it's like elves in a Mad Max world. It was so bizarre.
Yeah.
We'll have to watch the deleted scenes. Maybe they explain them a little bit better.
But they give him this sword that I guess helps because he has like a lightsaber fight with Damodar.
Slight.
It's just they make a sound effect every time they clash, and like I guess it like has thunder ability,
lightning
strikes thing.
It reminded me of Masters of the Universe a bit.
But it just seems like, and I know it's a classic D&D thing of just like you've advanced in your adventure. Here's an item gifted you by this to help you on your quest. It's a +1 sword or +2 sword with a lightning ability, but it just felt like, oh, this in other movies this would have been like something they're like, oh, this is the weapon of our people, here's a backstory on it, like this is why we're gifting it to you, you'll never be able to defeat them without this. But it's just like, nope, here's a sword. And he's just like, cool.
Oh, we noticed you didn't have a sword, let's give you one. Oh yeah, that's probably good, I'm going into battle.
Yeah.
Can I borrow that sword?
Then we have this big epic 100 dragons in the sky fight. Gold dragons versus
Birch
red
right
dragons.
In one.
And that was atrocious.
We get to see one get impaled on a building.
That was kind of cool.
Yeah, I guess.
It just, even though that they were clearly like different colored, I just wish they were
murky. They were murky colored.
Yeah, it's like it was kind of hard to tell what was happening because the sky was also like the same 2 colors as the dragons, which was a really odd choice. So you could see what was going on. It was just wasn't clear. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it just looked bad.
Blurry. It felt more just like a kid with his action figures and clanging them around. Doesn't really matter what's happening. You just know 2 dragons are fighting.
Because once we cut here, there's just the gold dragons in the sky and they're attacking Prothean or Jeremy Irons. I'm not going to say his stupid name. Attacking his castle, and I guess he's using like magic or something.
Yeah, he's got
to
like
keep
the advisor
wizards,
people who were like, fuck off, Empress.
So we never saw where these gold dragons come from. They were just there because she's got the gold staff.
We start like 6 minutes into this battle.
Yeah, it's already going on.
It's a bad.
We don't even know how they got here.
Yeah, but I will say, I like that the good guys have the upper hand at the beginning, and like, oh, you're trying to take me down? Fuck you! We're gonna burn you alive. Send all the dragons. and if the bad guys just happen to get lucky that they got their scepter when they did, because you normally don't see it. Usually it's the other way around.
It's like you have to shoot first, so we're justified in defending ourselves.
Sure.
Where it's like, no, we're gonna shoot you before you can like overthrow us.
And they're underpowered, and the orcs are at Helm's Deep, and then here's Gandalf with the horsemen. What are they called? The Rohan. So yeah, it was a nice flip flop on that.
I didn't think about that, but I agree. Then they're able to get this staff that controls red dragons. The red dragons show up. They do this big epic battle, yada yada, which like I think would look cool if the budget allowed for it, but it just looked bad. And then your hero Ridley defeats Damodar. I thought he was going to get a redemption arc because he's like, I don't want to work for Jeremy Irons.
Yeah.
I hate him. The only reason I'm doing this is because
worm ears,
and I'll die if I don't help him. And he even like gets rid of this monster curse thing that he has on him. So I was like, he didn't need to stick around, but he does. He dies.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, well, that character's arc was just tossed aside. Yeah. That's fine.
Not developed. And then when you have an inkling of something, they go, nah.
And then Thorberts shows up and kind of does battle with Jeremy Irons, but he sends like this really bad CGI chimp thing.
Yeah, skeleton
demon to like hold her down. But then she just uses her staff to get a dragon to eat Jeremy Irons, and then...
But the thing is like holding her wrist or holding the staff as if I'm controlling the thing that's holding you, so I'm controlling the staff, but that wasn't it. It's like, okay, why not send this thing instead of holding her down? Just take the staff away from her.
Or like, okay, I have to stand here and I have to speak this spell in order to like get this creature to hold her down. But then I'm just like, I have to keep doing that.
Yeah.
So it's like, if he can't move... What is his goal? Is it just to keep her dead? And like, there's also the heroes are just sitting there.
They're like frozen, remember? Or at least the dwarf and the elf were frozen.
Yeah, I think Ridley was still okay, but I guess he just did battle him. He's like kind of tired and beat up, whatever. But then it's just like, should Jeremy Irons just like walk over with like a knife and just stab her in the neck or something? But he's just like speaking pig Latin and then
pull the staff out of her hand. Why
anything?
So this is where. We saw earlier when they were raiding the magic school and they pick up a box and it had like a projection of a dragon come out. And I said, I bet this comes into play later because it's obviously set up that way. And you would think Ridley would have pulled this thing out. It comes out and it scares off that little thing that's holding her down so she can get up and then use the staff.
Or it breaks Jeremy Irons' concentration when he's casting a spell. Nothing.
Never used again. Nope.
So anyway, Jeremy Irons gets eaten by the dragon. Day is saved. They're now cut to a couple days later, I assume, and they're at the grave of Snails, and it's
the Empress has freed everyone, or no, not freedom, made everyone equal.
Which is like,
I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I didn't realize people weren't considered equal. Whatever, it's fine. But then, so we have Norda, the dwarf, mage girl whose name I have already forgotten that you told me, and Ridley, and they're all at his grave. There's all these like nice engraved tombstones around them, but they just like kind of piled some rocks on the ground and just like scribbled snails into one of those rocks. Which I was like, isn't this the guy who like helped you save the world? Couldn't the Empress like pay for a nice gravestone?
No, she's like, I never met him, so no, you
dude's name
is
Snails. Fuck him.
Is it Lord Snails? Snails? Oh, it's just Snails? No, he gets rocks.
Sir Snails, because he's knighted in death posthumously. Posthumously. Thank you.
Posthumously.
I never know how to say that word. Posthumously.
I think we both need a word a day calendar.
So, but then they take, Ridley's like, look, he's decked out in his new outfit, looking cool. He's like, oh, I'm going to go be knighted by the Empress. Snails, I miss you. You're my best friend. And he like puts the eye of the dragon on his grave as just like, here's your big score, buddy. Like, here's the last thing. And I guess it's some sort of like resurrection stone or some sort of wish stone that's like, his name disappears from the rock. So it's like, okay, so Snails is alive now. So that's when like Snails walks out from like out of the middle of nowhere and is like, hey guys, how am I alive? And
sits up from the grave and he coughs up some dirt.
Like, oh, that was crazy. Yeah. What I miss? And then it's like fade to black, hit the whatever music's from whatever big artist is at the time. Yeah. Big Willie style or something. Whatever Will Smith, of course, did a soundtrack for a song for this movie. But they never established that the eye could do that, I don't think.
It was just like a thing. You got to put it in a thing to activate a thing.
Yeah.
It never seemed like it was a magic thing.
And then I was like, oh, okay, so this is where Marlon Wayne shows up. But it doesn't. They turn to dust and fly away.
Yeah.
Why? What? It's like, so it teleports them So it brings their friend back to life from just context, and then teleports them to their friend as opposed to teleporting the friend to them.
I assumed his body's right underneath them. I assumed they actually literally buried snails there because it's not like he was evaporated. He was stabbed and flung off a thing. So
Yeah, but like they're. I mean, I guess they could have just like used teleport because they teleport in this.
Yeah.
In this, it's like they could have teleport, got his body back. Yeah, I'm saying that too, but I'm thinking like through magic, his body wouldn't be down there anymore.
Okay, so it'd bring him back to life and take him somewhere else.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like his body like
dissipated,
and then it's just. But that's why he's like, oh, he would show up like outside of the grave or something. He'd
Yeah.
like walk from the forest, and it's like, hey guys, but it's just like, oh no, we're all just gonna like turn to dust and fly away to heaven, to hell, to where he is, to some. Maybe he's in another realm, but it doesn't establish any of that.
Mm-mm.
It's just like, here's a magic artifact that's just going to do a bunch of stuff at the end. And it's like, was it to set up a tease for the future movie? Maybe.
Yeah,
it
had to.
Nothing was explained.
I assumed it is just he is still dead, but he's not gone for good. And they go and visit him in the underworld, and they would make peace with his death. But since they're down there, they got to do a little mission or whatever, and then that's where you start off. They do a thing in the underworld, it pisses off the devil or whatever they have in this world, and they got to stop him. I never assumed he was like brought back to life.
No, my assumption is once his name is wiped away,
I guess he's not dead.
He's not. Yeah. He's not dead. But if this movie was made today, it would have been the thing where like snails die, you cut to black. There's a mid-credit sequence where like Ridley is like walking into his like new home that he has with Mage Girl, and they walk in the door, and there's like a shadowy figure, and he pulls a sword. He's just like, "Who are you?" It's like, snail. I'm here to help you with something. It's like, what do you want?
Don't say it, Steve.
No, I didn't even think about that. Where he's just like, I can bring your friend back to life. And then you cut to, back to the credits or whatever. Like you tease snails might be dead, but he isn't gone kind of thing.
Or if he does come back, it's him, but it's a corpse. He's the living dead. And he's just like, hey, buddy. And they scream, cut to black again. And now he's a funny character, but he's dead. And so you can, sneak past guards by laying in a corpse cart, or he could just drop dead and people, kick him and they assume he's dead.
There could be some comedy there.
Some necromancy comedy.
Yeah, and then that's the mission of the quest for the second one is like, can we restore snails back to life?
We have, 1 month until the next full moon or the red moon, harvest moon shows, and this is the only chance to bring someone back from the dead. And so it's a race against the clock to gather up all the things to bring snails back to life.
I mean, that's the great thing about fantasy is you could do anything. But also the downside to fantasy is like, well, anything we can do, we can just write our way out of it because magic.
But I like that in the new D&D that they talk about that you just can't magic everything.
Yeah.
You can magic some things, but just not everything.
There are limits.
Yeah.
I have nothing else about so what would you give this as a grade?
This is probably a D.
I am also going to give it a D.
Yeah.
It's because I had a good time, or mostly a good time. It's not an F, but across the board, there's nothing good.
It needs help in every little thing. Nothing really is hit. Like they nailed this perfectly. Everything else sucks. It's like everything kind of sucks, but it all comes together, and it's like getting like leftovers from the whole week, and you put it on a plate. And like this isn't great, but at least I'm full. I ate something. It's fine. Maybe some of this was going a little bad, but whatever. Right?
I want to give it a D plus, just to be like generous. But then I feel like that's a little too close to a C.
A little too generous.
I can't justify it.
Yeah.
So it's a D.
It's a D.
Yeah, for sure.
Well. Oh, I had a bit of news I was supposed to do up top. So we're going to do a bit of news at the back end before we talk about what we're doing next week.
You're pregnant.
April Fools. So did you hear about Clayface in the DC Marvel? Oh, God, Jesus. In the DC movies, potentially?
This new James Gunn universe?
Well, what I heard was Mike Flanagan of Oculus and
Of
House on
course.
Haunted Hill and what's the vampire one? I always forget it.
Midnight Mass.
Midnight Mass, the Midnight Club. He actually went to Warner Brothers in DC and pitched a Clayface standalone movie. And like, if you want to have like your next Joker, and you want to do another villain movie, I have a pitch for Clayface.
Okay.
And they passed on it. And the rumor is that they passed on it because Matt Reeves actually wants Clayface for the Batman 2.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
we'll see in 2 years if that's even remotely close.
Here's what I'll say to about that. As much as I would love to see Clayface in Matt Reeves's universe, I just don't see how that fits logically. Because
it's the most outlandish of all of Batman's villains. And if you can't make...
which is saying something.
Yeah, if you can't make Mr. Freeze or Poison Ivy work in Matt Reeves's movie, Clayface...
The only thing I could see them doing is, like, he doesn't have, like, the giant mud butt. It's just he has a face that he can, like, morph.
Yeah, he actually has to push it because it is a face of clay.
So he can, like... And that's when you kind of do, like, a Hush thing. But you instead of making it whatever that character's name is, you do it with Clayface. Like, you could do Clayface in that way, but then it wouldn't really be what I want. I want the giant monster thing.
Yes, I want that big Batman the Animated Series jowl with the weird teeth. I want him to make a brick wall with his hands and try to punch Batman, a big spike ball.
It'd be one of those things where it's like he put on the makeup or whatever and change him, and then he's like, well, I guess if I... And then at the very end of the movie, he falls into a giant vat, and then at the last, like, 2 minutes of the movie, he gets to be the giant monster. It's like, fine, I guess, but it's not what I want.
But they would cut an electric cord, he'd get electrocuted, and then he'd be done.
Yeah. Or he'd get frozen and smashed up in pieces, whatever.
No, I want big Clayface.
But so if Mike Flanagan can do that, I'll watch, because, like, I'm a big fan of Mike Flanagan. I don't like horror. I like Mike Flanagan shit. He makes good horror stuff that I like. So I haven't seen Oculus yet. But I know you like it. So if Flanagan's got something, I'm willing to give it a shot because I trust him. But Clayface and the Matt Reeves universe, as much as I'd love to see it, I just don't see it being a thing.
And it's not necessary now that we have James Gunn and he is willing to do the big and the weird and not trying to worry about grounding it in reality, calling this first phase Gods and Monsters. It fits better for that.
Sure. 100%.
And we can just do, I know it's our second go around of super realistic Batman after Christian Bale, but if we're going to do Clayface, I want him right, and he's got to be in the right thing. I'd love to see Robert Pattinson getting swallowed up and can't breathe because Clayface is actually drowning him inside his own body. I'd love to see that, but it probably just won't work. But I know you and me are both Clayface fans, so I thought I'd bring it up. Next week, finally, the movie I've been waiting for, Super Mario Brothers. Is it the Super Mario Brothers movie or Super Mario Brothers the movie?
I think it's Super Mario Brothers the movie. That's my guess. Looking up. Do you want to take bets?
I think
you think it's
the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see.
The Super Mario Brothers movie.
The Super Mario Brothers movie. And then the original one was just called Super Mario Bros.
Gross.
The Super Mario Brothers movie. Yeah, okay. So finally that comes out. It comes out on Wednesday, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it comes out on the 5th.
Cool.
So I don't know if I'll wake up early Wednesday morning. We'll see. I probably won't wait till the weekend. I can maybe wake up Friday early, but whenever there's a movie available and I can see it, I can't stop myself. So I probably will see it early.
All right. So I'm sure we talked about it, but at some point by the end of this film, do we see a hint of other Nintendo properties? Like, Peach is like, oh, well, if we're going to face Bowser next time, we're going to need some help. And then she walks into, like, the Tim Burton forest where there's all the, like, holiday doors, but it's like you see the Hyrule symbol.
Or it's like the paintings like Mario 64.
Yeah,
but I can see it's pipes, and it would be the Hyrule symbol, the Kirby star, I think I could see more nods within the movie of, did you notice that in the background? I don't think we'll necessarily get a wink to a Smash Brothers anything.
I'm not even saying Smash, just any other
just
property.
I think
so they're going to be like, this exists in our world, or at least we have the ability to go to this world.
No,
I'm going to say no.
Mario's going to be like going through a chest and he pulls out like, oh, here's a star and here's a Tanuki suit and here's the Master Sword and here's a Pokeball.
Yeah.
That, yes.
Yeah.
But no hints of like, look what's coming next.
Okay. I agree.
But I think it would be fun after this one, say the next one's Legend of Zelda. Your post-credit scene is just like Link going through the forest and finding some relic, and it's a warp pipe, but it's all overgrown with vines, or it looks more in line with the graphics of Legend of Zelda, and that's it. You don't say anything. And then the next one after that is Metroid. Post-credit scene, Samus is doing a thing, goes into some sort of cave, and finds another warp pipe that is more in line with its graphics. And you just kind of do these post-credit scenes of, there's a warp pipe in all these. We're not going to go in them, but this is how we're going to do it. But what I really want, I think, because Kirby, I don't think needs his own movie. He doesn't even talk. He just makes Poyo sounds. I think before every movie of this Nintendo world, he should be the shorts before the movie. Like the Pixar short. Yeah. You have a fun little Kirby thing of Kirby makes breakfast. And it just, having him doing the things and having funny adventures of, he spilled the watermelon on his head and, inhaling people and getting crazy powers. And it's just silly, silent things of him versus King Dedede getting into wacky adventures. I think that'd be a real cute way to open all
like
of
a Tom and Jerry cartoon, or like a Mickey versus what's the big guy? Do you remember?
Mickey versus the big guy? What big guy? Mickey doesn't have an enemy.
Yeah, he's like the big
dog-looking guy?
Dog-looking guy, yeah.
I mean, that's more a goofy thing.
I'm pretty sure he was like the villain of Steamboat Willie. Doesn't matter. But yeah, I like that idea. I think that'd be cool.
That'd be cute.
See, I think if they're not going to do the pipe thing, if they do anything, I mean, the pipe might make more sense because like there's our reason to connect worlds. But it's just like it'd be fun if you just see like a knock at the door of Peach's at the castle and she's like just making commands. There's like a knock at the door and she opens it and she like looks around. There's no one there. And she looks down. There's just like an envelope with the symbol. That's my. If they're gonna do anything like that, that's my guess. You're gonna see the envelope and everyone's gonna be like, all the parents are gonna be like, what is that?
What is that?
And all the kids are gonna be like, no way.
Yeah, she breaks it, opens it up. Her eyes get big. Cut to black.
Yeah. She looks at Toad.
Yeah,
it's like, whoa.
Yeah, that'd be good. I'm happy with that, especially since they're like. It seems like they're getting through so much stuff with Mario in this first one. Yeah, we're doing Mario Kart, and I could see them maybe. We'll talk about it when we talk about Mario.
We're gonna say all the same shit next week.
Same shit. Okay. Well, if you want to get in contact with us, we are at WRPL Podcast at gmail.com on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. Who knows? TikTok may be going away if the government has anything to. Have you been watching those videos?
No, I don't care.
It's pathetic. This council of people just not knowing anything about technology, knowing nothing about social media, and just trying to railroad this dude and going like, this is a spy thing from China and you're stealing my Wi-Fi. They're idiots, absolute old dinosaur people who should not be in charge of anything. But anywho, so you may not be able to find us on TikTok too much later. As always, I'm Ben.
And I'm Steve.
And keep consuming.